All right, let's do an example. We're going to solve this example. So the example here is how to use a function that's going to have a return type and then how to use a currency formatter. So we're going to create a function here. We want to write a program that prompts the uses a for loop. We're going to prompt the user to enter $5 values between 0 and $100. We're going to use a function called getDoubleInRange that's going to prompt and perform the range check. So our method, or our function, the method is going to be called getDoubleInRange. It's going to take a scanner and a prompt and a minimum and a maximum. So it's going to have 4 parameters defined. And then the logic inside getDoubleInRange is going to prompt the user. It's going to display the prompt. It's going to wait for the user to enter data. It's then going to verify that the double that was entered is between the minimum and the maximum value, in this case 0 and 100. And then it's going to return that back to the calling function. The calling function will then use the currency formatter to format the value that was entered as currency. Okay. This is not a particularly useful program, of course, but it does get us some muscle memory on writing a function and gets us a little experience in using the number formatter. Okay, so let's flip over to Visual Studio Code. Let's go ahead and create, I'm going to open a folder to keep my code in. I'm going to put this in my week here. So let's call this simple function. Okay, let's open that. Code opens. Let's go ahead and add a file. Let's just call it SimpleFunction.java. Okay. Okay. So we'll wait for Java to activate so we get all of our IntelliSense. Okay, we're ready. Okay. Public class simple function. Okay, then we need our public static void main. We get some help from that. So we're going to want to declare scanner. So scanner equals scanner sc equals new scanner system dot in. Okay, we're going to use the IntelliSense to put the import in. Okay, and we'll go ahead and scanner.close that just so we don't forget to do that later. Now in between, we need a for loop because remember the prompt was to prompt the user to enter 5 numbers, doubles between 0 and 100. So we're going to want a for loop. So we're going to say for int count equals 0, count less than 5, count plus plus. Okay, here's our for loop. Okay, we start at 0, we end at less than 5. So our count will actually be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, but we'll get 5 iterations of the for loop. Next, we're going to use a method called getDoubleInRange to prompt. So we're going to say double value equals getDoubleInRange. And it takes 4 parameters. Remember, it takes the scanner, it takes a prompt. So we're going to say, please enter a dollar amount between 0 and 100. And then we're going to add 0 and the 100 as the inclusive limits on that. Okay. So this is our method. Now notice it's red squiggles because it's not defined. I could use IntelliSense here and just say create me the method, and we would get that. It messed up my formatting a little, my indentation a little bit. Okay, but we do get the method here. I'm going to undo that because I want to actually code it by hand just to get some muscle memory. Okay, so now we have the getDoubleInRange. I'm going to go. I want to go ahead and implement this because I've got an error in my code. So I want to get rid of that code because I can't compile it until I've actually defined this getDoubleInRange. So let's go ahead and define it. Public static. We need a return type. So in this case, the return type is double. The method is called getDoubleInRange. Takes 4 parameters. Scanner called sc. It's going to take the prompt as a string. It's going to take a double as the min. It's going to take a double as the max. Okay, there we go. Now my definition here is no longer red because I've defined the variable, but now my definition is red. I'm sorry, my call is no longer in red because I've done the definition, but the declaration of my method is in red, and it's because I don't have a return. Because I declared it as a double, the compiler says you have to return a double here. You've got to return something, and so I need to code a return statement here. So what I'm going to do, just for purposes of getting this to compile, is I'm just going to stub it out and return 0. So now all of my my code compiles. If I were to execute this, the code's going to compile. It doesn't actually execute because it doesn't do anything. All the code ran, but the code didn't display anything. It didn't ask the user for anything. But I know that my code is syntactically correct and running. So let's go ahead and finish. Okay, so what we want to do is, instead of returning 0 here, we actually want to code an input validation loop. So it's going to be a while loop because I'm going to do a while true here because I'm going to prompt the user to enter data until they comply with my request. So I'm going to say while true, and this is technically an infinite loop, but I'm going to have a return statement in here that will get me out of the loop. So while true, I'm going to prompt the user. This is just like we prompt the user for any other piece of data. So prompt the user, we're using the prompts. Okay, now I read data. Double input equals double dot parse double scanner dot next line. Okay, now I have double. This is not complete input validation. We'll learn about this in subsequent weeks, but you know, I'm going to want to write code here to protect myself from invalid double entry. If I type text, this would fail. But for this example, we're not going to validate that it is valid. We're going to assume the user is entering valid double value. We're just going to verify it against the min and the max. So I'm going to say here if input is less than or equal to the max, and input is greater than or equal to the min, then it's valid. And this is what I want, so I'm just going to return it. If it's not valid, then I'm going to display an error message. Must enter value between, and we'll just use the min. Okay. That's it. So let's see if that works. So let's go ahead and run that. We should get prompted 5 times. Enter a dollar amount between 0 and 100, $95.32. -10. I should get an error here. Can't do that. 101.2. Okay, $23, 45.50, 99.99, 100. All right, so that works. So we entered five values in between 0 and 100. Okay, so that's our method, get double in range. This is a very useful method. We'll use this over and over again. We'll write another one, get double in range. Maybe we'll write a get positive double. Maybe we'll just write a plain get double. But you know, we'll do the same thing for integers. So this method is very useful. We will use this over and over again from here on out in the course. Okay, the rest of the assignment was to just echo back the value using the number formatter. So we can see what that looks like here. We've defined it number format currency equals number format dot get currency instance. Okay, so let's go ahead and type that. So this is the definition of a variable. The variable type is number format. We're going to call it currency, and we're going to call it equals number format dot get currency instance. Okay, and we can define a locale here, like US or France or European Union or Ireland, Italy, whatever. But we don't need to do that. We're just going to use the default that we have. Notice that we're not using the new here. So when we declare the scanner, we use new scanner. So this is us creating an instance of scanner. When we use the number format, we don't actually have to use the new method because the get currency instance is a static method inside number format. So it doesn't require the new, okay? Why? That's just the way it was written. So now we can actually echo back the value. So we can say system.out.println. We're going to use the format, the built-in format method inside the currency object, which is of number format type. System.println, we're just going to echo that back. We're going to say formatted. We're going to say plus currency.format. And it's going to currency, let's spell that. Currency.format. And we're going to give it a value of value. That's what we named the input. Okay. All right. And we need extra parentheses there. Okay, so we're done. So let's go ahead and just let's put a new line before this just so that it's easier to read. Okay, let's run that and see what it does. Please enter a dollar amount between 0 and 100. We already know that if we enter negative value here, that it's going to work. So let's go ahead and enter 98.34, and we get our formatted number here. Okay, let's enter one with more decimal points. So let's enter 117 and then a bunch of extra decimal points. We're going to get it rounded. So in this case, 6.63745, the currency formatter is rounding it to 17.64. If we enter just an integer value, we're going to get the extra 2 decimal points, 23.00. Okay. There we go. So here's an example of writing our own function with a specific return type. I think you can see how useful this function would be in multiple places. We only called it one time, but maybe we want to get multiple inputs. We could just use the same method with different prompt values, different min and max values, in order to get the data that we're after. And then we use the currency formatter we saw an example of how to do that, to format currency to our locale. Okay, so that's that for that example.